I grew up with a single mother. 3 kids were in my house. It's me and my 2 sisters. The whole single mother thing came about from having us at a young age, basically. We were all in the house at a young age. I think I was maybe 1 or 2, and my father and my mom got into a fight, and he stabbed her behind the ear and almost killed her. And
Whoa.
yeah, so he went to prison for that. So I never knew my father growing up. When you're a single parent household, your children are already like extremely vulnerable to these things, you know? So my mom, I remember she would take us to this one house, and there was a bunch of kids in that house. I do remember that house pretty profoundly, I guess. But there was a guy he was like a teenager. He's like 15, 16, 17, and I was about 5.
Okay.
And he would take me to his bed at night. I just remember it being dark. Like it was always at night. The majority of that was like exposing himself to me, and then sometimes like just making me touch him. My father was never there. He was still in prison for all this time. My first actual like memory of meeting my father, I have pictures of when I was a baby with him, but my first memory of like being with my father is in prison. With my mom, when I was about 10 years old, things kind of started to get really bad. She'd always had boyfriends throughout the years.
Okay.
Just different random guys coming in and out of the house. This one house, like, a lot of bad things happened here. And she became, more abusive.
Physically abusive?
Physically, emotionally. So I go upstairs, and she had this paddle. It was like a 2x4 with like a handle carved into it and had a bunch of holes. It's like designed for like giving good ass whoopings, basically. And this is what we had been getting whooped with for a while, which was not bad, truthfully. But this day in particular, she hit me, and I remember the first time she hit me, I knew like this was bad. And I'm like stretched out across her bed. That's what we always had to do. We had to bend over, put our arms out, and just hang on, basically. So I've come across Jacob, and me and Jacob start hanging out like every single day. Like he's like my protector. He's like cool as hell, and he knows something's wrong at home too. So he's like protecting me.
Okay.
And he's lets me come over whenever, and he's got older friends, and they're in high school, and I'm like this kid that's just hanging out with them.
Okay.
And I see this guy walk in, and this guy is like 6'5", 380 pounds. He's about 30 years old at the time. We get to his house, and it's got this like low ceiling. It's like a 9-foot ceiling, maybe 8-foot ceiling, but there's acoustical ceiling tile, same thing you got in here.
Yeah.
And then it's got the typical like 2x4 fluorescent lights throughout the whole thing, but it's a big open studio. I look to my right, and there's 2 TVs and like 2 or 3 Xboxes, and off to the back right corner there's like a kitchen, like a little half wall, and a bathroom back there, and then in the back right corner there's a couple desktop computers. Okay. And then in the middle of the whole studio, there's like a big round table that has like all this Dungeons and Dragons stuff on there that we used to play the Dungeons and Dragons thing. The back left corner is it's got these like black curtains that are hanging from the ceiling, and that's his bedroom. And I'd stay the night, Friday night, Saturday night, and go home Sunday. For some reason, at some point, it became normal for me to sit in the guy's lap. I'll never forget the first time he touched me. He had these massive hands. I know what his hands feel like, and this is people who go through these kind of things. They know what that feels like for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
I'm serving, like I tell people, I'm serving a life sentence right now.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of it. At this point, by the time I was 12, I had seen many, many people coming in and out of my house completely high out of their minds. By the time I hit 13 years of age, I had experienced every sexual encounter, engagement, act, whatever you want to call it, everything, by the time I was 13 years old with this man, like multiple times. My mom was taken away, my innocence, my dignity, like pride, anything I had regarding manhood was taken away from me by this man.
All right, so we just wrapped. My initial question is, like, how do you feel now after? I know you've shared your story before, but like to do this in a studio, right? There's something more real about having to like confess these things in front of other people. So like what does that feel like for you right now?
Yeah, sometimes it depends on the audience. Like sometimes it's, there's like a different vibe, whatever. Some people you're more comfortable with. But I'm good. Some of those details, when you start talking about them, they are like, it really don't matter who you're talking to. It's just like, man, that's hard to say. And,
right.
and I didn't even really get that graphic, which,
Yeah.
That takes a whole another hour or two to get into all that.
Yeah.
But it feels good. And everybody that I talk to, they have different questions. And that's what I like is hearing the different questions, the different perspectives.
Yeah.
Because it helps me understand what the audience is hearing versus what I'm saying, So when I tell my story and you say, well, you ask a question, I'm like, okay, well, that's what he's picking up. Okay, well, let's talk about that. So it helps me see my story from a different light.
And does that help you further unpack the things that maybe like were stuck up in there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I'm saying. Like when you start to see it from a different light, as I've told my story, like even when I was writing my book, I got about halfway through my book and I was like, I gave up. I actually deleted it. I deleted everything. 20,000 words, deleted them because I was like, it's not that bad. My story's not that bad. And then when I tell my story to somebody, I've told my story before, and as soon as we were done with the podcast, we cut, and the guy broke down crying.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, my story might be a little...
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, a little tough.
Yeah, dude, it's... and I hate to play, like, the comparison game, but, like... The things I've been through, I certainly didn't, like, want to go through, but I hear you talk about, like, the living conditions you had and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, man, I'm really grateful for my experiences. I'm really grateful for my childhood, and I think that's kind of a lost thing, too, is, like, now a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm not as much of a victim, so I can't, you know what I mean? Like, we disqualify. It's this weird, like, if you either have to be, like, the champion or the biggest loser of all. And if you're anywhere in between, like you're somehow not qualified to like have other people listen and learn from you. It's like this, and I think we do it more as men. I don't know so much about women. I'm just speaking from a guy's perspective. I don't claim to understand women. I don't know if that's possible as a man, but that was a joke. And like, can you speak to that too? Like, what was it a mentor or someone who like helped you reframe the way you viewed yourself? Because let me give a little context, right? So I'm setting out to start this business to help men and coach them and all that kind of stuff. And I had this huge like imposter syndrome story weaving in my head. Like, well, who are you? Why are you qualified to teach? Why you over, like, why don't they just go to someone better, right? And then, I had some mentors in my life be like, what a stupid way of thinking, bro. Like, why not you? Like, what if you're the best they're ever going to get, And I was like, okay. So I started, like, pulling that thread, and I looked back at it, and most of it was just conditioning through, like, childhood experiences and stuff of, like, I'm not enough, So what did that look like for you with this book? And then also, like, you've obviously set upon a path here where you're like, hey, I'm gonna help make a difference in the world.
Oh, man. That's a good one. For me, yes. So like I said, I wrote my book and then I deleted it because I was like, it's not that bad. Okay. And then, yeah, I mean, those are the things you have in your head, right? Where it's like, my story is really not that bad. What did it for me was hearing somebody else's story, knowing it was bad, it impacted me, made me feel better about myself. It made me understand myself more. And then when I've told my story many times now, I have gotten so many responses.
Right.
I got a ton of feedback when I would tell my story without the like sexual abuse. Right. So when I tell my story, I'm like, I grew up with an abusive mother, drugs, violence, saw all these bad things
just
happen.
that alone.
That alone was like, wow, I can relate.
Yeah.
And then when I'm like, and I was also sexually abused for, almost 6 years and, close to 300 to 400 occasions. Right. That's like a whole nother level of like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So, with that though, one thing that I've kind of battled, and this maybe will help answer that question, is as I've wrote my book and I've told my story, sometimes I'll misspeak and I'll say 6 years or 5 years.
Sure.
Right. And then what I think about is somebody getting on there and being like, well, in this episode you said 5, and on this one you said 6.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're lying. Your story doesn't make sense, you know? And it's like, it doesn't matter if I was molested one time or 500 times.
Right.
That's not the point. Is this happened to me?
Shouldn't have.
It shouldn't have. But this happened, and this is how I recovered, right?
Right.
And so you have to tell your story and you have to use what you have as a platform to heal.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to be the guy who was like, sexually abused and without a father. Like, that's not my story.
Yeah.
My story is
You're
overcoming
a
all
husband
of
and
it.
father, and
that's who I am.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not a childhood abuse victim.
Yeah.
I'm not. I was, and I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, I run freaking ultra marathons.
Yep.
I do jiu-jitsu. I'm a husband. I'm a father.
Stop you there. What's up with the ultra marathon, man?
Dude, it's man, like last year in September.
Do you just like running that much?
No, I hate running.
Okay.
Dude.
I was like, man, I don't know if we can be friends anymore. I freaking hate running.
Dude, I hate it, man. I hate running. So even when I was in the Army, right? I was an infantry guy. I was in 82nd.
Yeah.
And you're you're either strong or you're fast. And I was the strong one.
Yeah.
I was never a runner. And when I got out of the Army, I said I'd never run a day in my life ever again. And last year in September, one of my buddies from
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you probably stuck to it.
No, I run.
Okay,
I have to run.
Okay, good. Well,
I'm not doing ultra marathons though.
Hey, man,
No.
That's good for you. Not in the physical sense, probably, but mentally it'll make it.
You learn about yourself.
Yeah, you do.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, yeah, you're good. But my buddy ran a race last year, and I went out to support him, to crew him for it.
Yeah.
And I was going to change his socks, feed him, do all that stuff,
sure.
give him his clothes. And when I was out there, I'm like, dude, like this whole community is freaking awesome. Like the ultra running community is really cool. I don't know about the marathon community.
I have no idea.
Yeah, marathoners are like all about speed and like they're kind of like assholes. That's how I kind of look at them. They may not be, but I look at them like they're assholes because they get on the road, they run fast, and they're all like super competitive.
It's all about their time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ultra marathons is like, can you finish?
Right.
Can you just get to the finish line?
So everyone's kind of more on the same team a little bit.
Yeah, it's like
there's obviously still people who try to like compete and win it, but it's like
everybody's like super supportive, like very supportive. It's never like you're not like bumping elbows with somebody like trying to get in front of them,
That's funny.
So that's one thing I noticed, and my buddy ran that, and I was like, damn, I want to like this is pretty cool. Like this is like really hard.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I started running last year, and September is when I started.
Okay.
And since then, I've ran like 6 ultras, and I'm running.
So how far is an ultra?
31. Your first one's a 50K, which is 31 miles. My first ultra was 30. I've never ran a marathon ever, but I've run multiple ultras. So I've done a couple 50Ks. I did a 50 miler in December on like a few months prep, like 3 months of prep. I went and ran 50 miles.
Bro.
And so that's just like a testament of like human spirit and like your journey. And really the reason why I did the 50 miler like that soon was because I was looking for something that would test me to the point where I would break down emotionally. Like I wanted to, this is one thing I always tell everybody. Like I tell somebody like, you want to be successful, you want to do something and you want to be great at something, exhaust yourself one time. Just do it one time. Do it one day. And then do it for a week and then do it for a month and then do it for a year.
Yeah.
Just exhaust yourself. Take yourself so far into the deep water that like you don't ever want to go back there again.
Right.
Because once you do, you know what it feels like. And then that's what it takes. That's what it takes to be successful, to be like highly successful. It's getting into that deep water. And then like, I know what it feels like down here.
Yeah.
And once you get down there, there's an obstacle. And as soon as you clear that obstacle, you've unlocked potential.
Yeah.
So when I ran that 50 miler, I got done and I was like, okay, I'm fine. And so I actually, like, I was like a hungry dog. I was like, okay, this is like not enough. Like I got to find more. So I knew I was capable of more.
Yeah.
So I ran a 60 miler like a month later.
Holy smokes,
and then,
man.
Yeah, the last one I did was a 40 miler. That was the hardest race I've ever done. It was and the reason why that it was kind of the course design and the time limit caps and things like that. It's a 1 mile loop every 50 minutes on the minute.
Oof.
But it's like this, the course makes it tough and it was hot as hell. And the reason why that one was I'm so proud of that one is because I came across the finish line with like 2 seconds left on the cap. And, so as soon as I came across, the next lap started because there was 2 seconds left.
Yeah.
And so, and I fell to my knees and I was done. And then my brother was there and he picks me up and he's like, you got one more? And I'm like, all right, let's go. And so I was at the point of like total exhaustion and I was still able to pump out another lap. And just that one I gave my absolute all. And so that one it really like triggered something in me. I was able to like find that deep like because for about 20 miles, I was like delirious.
Yeah.
Running in circles.
So for you, it's like this soul searching experience for you. It's not even really about the running. It's just like having to get yourself to that point.
When I tell somebody I run ultra marathons, the reaction, it says enough. Like that's what does it. It's like,
yeah.
The same thing when I tell my story.
Mm.
Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I tell them, like, yeah, I run ultra marathons too. And they're like, what is, they can't even fathom running 60 miles. Like most people can't fathom growing up the way that I did. They don't understand that.
That's fair.
And so it's just like that, another element of like, why not be greater? Like, why not have a better story? If I'm watching a movie, like, that's what I want. I want this guy to like, oh my God, like, look what he's doing.
Yeah.
Now he's doing this. Now he's doing this. Like, now he's doing this. Like, this is a story of greatness. It's not like accomplishing a couple things and then stopping.
Yeah, I get it. You're trying to rewrite the next chapters. So that's what people remember, not. Yeah. That makes total sense to me, bro.
And all that stuff in the past, though, it is part of the journey. You know? So.
But it's not gonna.
It's not my identity.
It's not the defining.
Yeah.
It's just the opening act. It's not
That's
the
right.
conclusion. Yeah, dude. I like that. Okay. It is true. Like I did the Go Ruck Tough last year. I had no idea. Like I thought it was like you're just gonna ruck from point A to point B as fast as you can type of thing. So that's how I trained for it. I had no idea that it was like, I don't know if you've done one. It's like going like back to Ranger School or something. They like haze the crap out of you for 12 hours.
Really?
Yeah, it's freaking rough. And I felt real sorry for myself about 6 hours in. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to finish this thing. And I'm so glad I did it because I was like, I need the reminder that I'm not that tough. 2, I felt so good at the end of it, not because I was done, but it was like, all right, I can do hard things.
Yeah.
It was just like the basic reminder. And there's something about like just doing something like that, whatever.
Yeah, man.
It is not comfortable. Like in the moment, I was just like, F this, I hurt, everything hurts. Like, why am I doing this? I'm doing this for fun in my free time. I've done enough of this crap in the Army against my will, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, no, that's stupid. That's weak. Like, just embrace this,
Well,
and afterwards I was like, man, and everyone too, like everyone who finished also, there was like this, it was just cool to see a bunch of random people come together who had never met each other. And like, we all did that thing together. And, they say it like, hey, we're building great Americans. And like, I get it now. I was like, okay. I was kind of hating on it ahead of time. I'm like, well, I think I need to do at least one of these a year now. Cause there's just something about getting uncomfortable.
Yes. So what it is, man, like one of the most powerful things you can do is be capable.
Yeah.
Right?
I definitely wasn't like the strongest guy in the group or the fastest. Like I definitely, there was moments where people had to help me up a little bit, which that was humiliating. But yeah, like I had the tube, the 70-pound thing of cement on my back. And I was like, I gotta tap out for a minute, and I had to have some other dude help me, and that was embarrassing because I was like, man, I should be able to make it the whole way. But
the being capable, I think is part of the reason why I do what I do. It's the reason why I'm like over like the high of jiu-jitsu. Like I'm not like, oh, I do jiu-jitsu and like I'm super excited to get there every day. Like I'm over it. So it's kind of like training where it's like, oh, okay, jiu-jitsu's the way. But being capable is so important because it's such it's a confident. This is what I tell somebody. I know I can make my bed. I know I can do my laundry. So like when you do those things, you feel good because you accomplished something, right? You go do that. It's something hard. You accomplished it. I go run an ultra. It's hard. I accomplished it.
Yeah.
I'm capable. I am more capable than I realize. I'm not even reaching my
that's
potential.
What it was. It was when I hit the wall and I had because that's the thing. So like on active duty, right? I had that all the time.
Yeah.
You do stuff. And like, especially when you're in a leadership position, it's like, well, all the other guys ate and slept and you didn't because guess what? You were planning the next operation. Like you're leading.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of times where you're burning the candle for like long periods of time, right? I don't think people realize that, but then you become a civilian and it's like you just got all this downtime. You do whatever you want, whenever you want. You live in AC all the time or heat in the winter, and like it's just comfort. And I work out real hard and all that kind of stuff. And I thought I was all tough and everything. And I was like, oh yeah, this is. Doesn't matter how fit you are, they're going to find your breaking point and they'll get you to it. And it was that reminder of in that moment of like, no. This is the internal war. Like your body wants you to quit just because it knows it's uncomfortable and you can certainly, and I was fine. Like I just slept it off the next day. Like I had no injuries or anything. It was totally fine. Anyway, I needed that reminder. Anyway, any final, I guess, just anything that shook loose through our conversation that you wanted to just like tap real fast, and then we'll wrap it.
Yeah, I forgot to say this during. This is one of the very important parts about healing, and especially when you're comparing trauma. When you're comparing trauma, or you're overcoming trauma, or you're on your healing journey, one of the things that people will do, and I did this a lot, is the anger comes from when I meet you and I look at you. I had no idea about your story. Like I said, I looked for it, couldn't find it. But when I meet you, and to me, you don't look like anybody who's been through anything to me. You just look like an average guy, right? You've lived this average life, probably had mom and dad. And so you get this like fuck this guy mentality where it's like he doesn't know me. He doesn't understand my problems.
Yeah.
And so you get so mad when somebody has a bad day.
Yeah.
For example, me and my wife. If my wife has a bad day, I'm like, why are you even upset? Like, what do you have to be upset about? Like, you have nothing to be upset. You don't even know what struggle looks like. Have you been to war? That's the thing that guys who deploy a lot, right?
I said it to my brother once, and as soon as I said it, I was like, no, bring him back, try to put him back. It's like I literally was the cliche.
Yeah. So people do that all the time. They'll say like, you don't know what it's like to be me, and it's like they're not supposed to,
right?
And they don't have to. And it's not their job to walk on eggshells around you.
That's right.
So if you have problems, that's why it's so important to heal. Because if you don't, you will push away your brother, your mom, your dad, your wife, your sibling, whatever. You'll push away everything if you don't focus on that healing. As opposed to, it does not matter if they've been through anything or not. And even with therapy, a lot of people don't want to talk to therapists because they have not been through anything.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't matter. The point is you get in there and you talk because you can self-discover and process.
Right.
So that's one thing I tell somebody is so important about speaking and just even if it's to somebody just alone.
It's empathy.
Yeah, like you're just get those things out of your body so that you can help process it. It's really important, and don't hold it against somebody.
Yeah,
if they had a good life, I guess not their fault. I mean, be happy for them.
Right.
Be grateful for them. So
that's a really good point, and it is very easy to convince ourselves of that. That's a huge trap. Because I mean, I've had those same thoughts to other people at times, and it's not useful. It does you no good. And what it forces you to do is have some empathy for other people, right? And meet them where they're at. And that's we talk about leadership a lot. That's what I found, especially through like the military, was real leadership is not necessarily having all the knowledge and being the best at the things or whatever. It's really understanding where your people are in their journey and helping them hit that next level. And so, like for me, when I was a commander, I had 4 lieutenants, right? Well, they're all at different levels of experience or capability or whatever. And so it's adapting me to meet them and help them smash through their plateaus wherever they were, right? And then now extrapolate that and apply it to everyone you meet, everyone you work with, your family, your kids, your wife, you know, like if you don't humble yourself a little bit first, you can't connect where they are. And man, that's such a great piece of advice because that's really where the magic happens for everyone, right? Think of every great mentor who's played a role in your life. They had to humble themselves and probably dumb down whatever it was they were coaching you on to where you were at.
It's funny you say that because when I was a junior, I was an NCO, I was a sergeant, but even before then, and even as a E5, I looked at great leaders, and sometimes I kind of got pissed off at it because what I would see is they'd have all these different personalities. I'm like, well, you don't talk to him the same way you talk to him. Like, why not talk to everybody the same? You should be the same. You should be the same person. Like, why are you changing? Like, and I had this like thing where I'm like, just be yourself all the time. And if you're acting different with you, then why are you acting different with him? Yeah. And it's like, I don't talk to you the way I don't talk to my wife, right? Sure. And so one of the things I figured out as a leader is, like you said, meeting people where they are. So that might mean being more relatable to them, talking with them, how they talk, going to their place and like in their mindset and being with them as opposed to just being like, I am Seth and I am only Seth all the time.
You adapt to me, not the other way around.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And that's one thing I did. It took me a long time to realize that, like, if you're good, if you want to help people, you got to. So for me, being that I'm this, ultra runner, jiu-jitsu, like I do all this hard shit. I get fired up. I love David Goggins. I love like freaking like this like hardcore motivation shit. Not everybody does. No. And so like when I go and talk to somebody.
I'm not a fan of Goggins. Yes. I don't need him yelling at me to work out.
Exactly. Right. So if I come to you, right, and I'm like screaming in your face and we're working out, like I'm not that way either. Yeah. Like I don't like somebody screaming at me, but I like his mentality stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if somebody comes and screams at me in the face, I'm like, I don't need all that, buddy. Like, I'll just push myself. Yeah. But it's just meeting people where they are. Yep. I think it's such a. I wish I would have known all this.
It's a simple phrase, and it's hard to implement.
Yeah.
It's simple to say it. It's very hard to practice.
Yeah.
All right, Seth, that was awesome, man. Thanks for doing a little debrief. Yeah. I think we captured some really cool stuff right here, and wishing you all the best, brother.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you, dude. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
I had a great time, man. Thank you.
Sick.
I think what I'll do is Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you're on YouTube, drop a subscription to us, and if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a review. It helps greatly. If you are also ready to level up as a man, check out Elite Sentinel Coaching, our program designed specifically for men, where we forge men into leaders. We turn cowards into kings, weaklings into warriors. Become the hero in your story. Join us today.